Hello you guys and welcome back to my channel, Literature and Reviews. Today I'm making my review concerning a movie that I really like and I really admire, and it's called The Hours. I am sure that you are familiar with this kind of movies, starring Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman alongside to Julianne Moore. This movie has brought so many things into my life, and I feel that I owe this movie a lot of things in my life. First, before just digging deep into the movie, I want to make a huge recognition, whatever you want to call it, for the amazing one and only Philip Glass, because he has created a soundtrack which really makes me cry. And it makes me, those times when you are really desperate and you need to cry, but you can't cry, you don't know why, just the tears are not flowing from your eyes, and you just need a motivation to let you cry. And when I play the playlist and the soundtrack of Philip Glass, The Hours, I just can't stand it. I just go immediately into tears. So, I just want to say about the soundtrack at the first place, because when I remember The Hours, I always just, think about the soundtrack. The second thing I want to talk about is that the movie is not adapted or based upon Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, but there are a lot of things that came into the novel and into the movie that both together, mixed together, intertwined together, and it turned out to be a really great movie. Now, I have read the book Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf when I was in my fourth year modern literature, and I've got to say that I have first read the novel for like 2 times, and then I went into depression. Then I have watched the movie, and I went to a greater depression. So this movie and this novel both make you feel and make you wonder a lot of you know existential issues. They make you question a lot of things, and they really make you raising these questions about your own life and your own existence in life. What are you doing? How things are going on in your life? What's happening? And what is the purpose of life? Now, I believe that the novel. I mean, I'm going just to give you a summary of the whole novel, a very quick summary. It's about this lady. She's called Mrs. Dalloway, Clarissa Dalloway. And the novel begins, Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. Now, Virginia Woolf was a pioneer in stream of consciousness writing. And for those who are not, aware of what is stream of consciousness, I believe it's one of the greatest and most powerful tools to be used in any literary form, because it's so real that it makes you just feel really unmasked. It makes you feel that you are naked. Your soul is naked, and you are only there with your own thoughts. So imagine being capable to enter the stream of consciousness of a person and knowing every single thought that's going inside of his mind. Now, when this happens and you start interpreting everything your stream of consciousness is going on, and you really start absorbing how our minds have this great capacity of isolating themselves from the reality and go to a whole different world and a whole different reality in their own minds. And It's like, in every one of us, in his stream of consciousness, in his gut, there is a movie which is going on 24/7, and the only one who's seeing this movie and listening to this movie and listening to this stream of consciousness is you. Now, Clarissa Dalloway, back to the novel, Clarissa Dalloway, she is a woman from England, and she's in her middle age. The whole novel takes about almost half a day, and in this half a day, we go into the stream of consciousness of Clarissa Dalloway. We go into the details of her life. We go into the past of her life, how things led to her marriage, her first love, the relationship with her and her daughter, the friends she bumped into the road, the motifs that's going around her in the street, the plane motif, and the hustle and bustle of New York City. Now, I don't want to talk a lot about the novel because I think, I'm going to make a whole review about Mrs. Dalloway, but this is actually just to put you into the spirit of the movie. Now, in this whole day of Mrs. Dalloway, so she was preparing for the party. She's making, a purpose of her life by making these kind of parties, and she's just preparing the party. Now, there is another character whose name is Symptom. He has been through the trauma of war, and at the end of the novel, we realize that Symptom has committed suicide, and Clarissa Dalloway has continued her party. Now, I know this might seem silly on the surface, but when you go dig deep into the novel, you really just get shocked of how much we are involved into each other's life and how our lives intertwined and come into, cross point with us and others people's lives that we might not even know. The hours start now. Talking about the movie, the hours. The movie starts in 3 different eras. We have first the era of Nicole Kidman, which is playing Virginia Woolf, and we have also the character of Clarissa, who was taken from the novel of Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway. Clarissa, played by Meryl Streep, and we have also Juliana Moore. Now, these 3 characters are the 3 of them live in different eras. So the novel, the movie starts with talking about these 3 women and how their lives just come across into each other in a way that make them feel they're all connected to each other. Now, before actually I'm telling you, so this review has, spoiler alert, so you should have watched the movie or something, and now we are just analyzing the movie. Nicole Kidman adapting the character of Virginia Woolf. In real life, Virginia Woolf was a great writer. She has lived some dreadful years of the Victorian era. And back then, Victorian era, I believe that it is the worst era for women in the generation of our human being. It's one of the worst because back into the Victorian era, we are convinced to see any different woman as a victim of her own thoughts. Virginia Woolf, she was a genius, and she has suffered a lot of mental health issues, great deal of depression, and at the end of the day, she has committed suicide and threw herself into the river. And the ironic thing is that, she has thrown herself into the river, and then she was dead by the stream of the river, and she was actually the pioneer of stream of consciousness. Now, she has committed suicide, and she was incapable to fit in that society. That society concerned her ill, concerned her that she is mad or something, just because she was not faking anything in life. She was victim of the dreadful medical system, and she just wanted to live. She wanted to live the pulse of the city. She wanted to live the pulse of London. She didn't want to be living in that countryside where everything is calm and everything is dead. She wanted to be at the center of action. In her novel, Mrs. Dalloway, we always see these beautiful imageries and beautiful scenes of the main character, Clarissa Dalloway, being in London. She was fond of that city. Now, back to the movie, Nicole Kidman has played this character, and she was really capable of delivering the spirit of Virginia Woolf in terms of look, in terms of dress code, in terms of accent. In all terms, she was phenomenal. And I believe that, for me, this was actually one of the best roles that played by Nicole Kidman. Now, when we talk about the representation of Mrs. Dalloway, of Virginia Woolf in The Hours, we are talking about a roaming spirit. She was actually trying to find answers for everything going in her life. And she was melancholic. She needed help, but simply she couldn't find help because nobody was capable to understand how much deep she was. So the movie begins with her writing a suicide letter. First one is for her husband, and the second one is for her sister. We know what was in the letter for her husband, telling him that apparently she's going mad again, and he has been a great person, and she has to make this choice, and she has to kill herself because this is the best thing for everyone. So she wrote the suicide letter, and then she moved out of the house, went, and she wore her coat, went to the river, put some rocks in her jacket, in her coat, to make sure that she won't float, and she died. Now we move to Clarissa Dalloway, which we see that the partner who is living with her, she was a female, and she was preparing for a party, exactly like Mrs. Dalloway was preparing for a party in the novel. In The Hours, Clarissa is preparing for a party. This party was made for giving her boyfriend, Richard, an award for his book. So the whole time she was preparing for the party and she was happy going and buying flowers, exactly like what happened in the novel. She went to buy flowers, and the flowers are both, in three characters that are all coming together. So she went to buy the flowers, preparing for the party. She was busy preparing the food and organizing everything, calling people to make sure that they are all coming. And she just wanted Richard, who is having HIV, she wanted him to be happy. She wanted him to be recognized after working like years and years for for the novels, for the novel, and she wants him just to be happy. So she was preparing for the party. She was happy, and she is one of those people that you would feel, her energy was um, in the room. You can't avoid her energy. Now we come to Juliana Moore playing the character of Flora Brown, and she is a middle-aged woman. She's married and she has a kid. Apparently, she is having also a great depression. And the great thing about her characterization is that you do not see a reason behind her depression. We don't go through details to find out why she is depressed and why she is not happy, why she is melancholic. We don't go through details. Simply, she is depressed. She can't handle her own life. The day comes and we know that it's the birthday of her husband. So she woke up, she was in the bed, and she read Mrs. Dalloway. Then she moved to the kitchen and saw some flowers, and then she sat with her husband for a bit, talking about some things. And when her husband left, she tells her kid, "Let's make daddy a cake." Now I know this line might seem very thoughtful and lovely, but when you see the movie and you hear this particular line, you just feel that she is the most depressed person on earth. Let's make daddy a cake. So she wants her son to help her in making the cake, and she wants to just keep going in her life like it's a normal day, while in fact she is so depressed. It came to a point that she wanted to take her own life. So she took her child and she asked she asked a neighbor to help her nursing the child till she comes back home. At that scene, so at that scene, we know that she is up for something. She is going to do something to end her life, and she is going to do something that's going to end this misery, to end this depression. She just wants this pain to be killed, and she just wants to be found dead simply in a hotel room by taking pills. When she went to the hotel and checked in, she went into the room, locked herself, and then she started to have these visions around her. She started seeing things like someone is drowning and a lot of, dreadful things. At that moment, she had her wake-up call and decided no, that she's not going to end her life. So she just should go and find her son. Just go and grab him. Back to Clarissa. and her relationship with Richard. Now, Richard has an HIV. Back then, at that time, the movie was in 2002, and at the 90s, maybe at that period of time, for those who were having HIV, it was a dreadful situation. It was very tragic, and nobody could help, nobody could do anything about that, and HIV was just killing person after another, person after another. So he was in a great depression. Also, I know the movie has a lot of depressed people. He was very depressed. Richard was one of the characters who has seen no purpose of his life. He has failed as a writer, he has failed as a lover, he has failed as a healthy person, and later on we'll find that, in terms of family, it has already failed, and he just wants to die. However, being in love with Clarissa was the most joyful thing, and at the same time, it was the most tragic thing to happen in his life, because he knew how much she loves him, and she knew how much he loved her, and he knew that it was very terrifying, the idea of him in her life and waiting for death. He was just waiting for death. He was not taking his pills. He was in chaotic environment, and he just wanted peace. He just wanted death, eternal rest. So when Clarissa came to him and they have started talking about the party, Clarissa was playing this character of joyful spirit, that, she wants him to be comfortable. She wants him to feel that everything's going to be okay. You are going to come to the party. We're going to have fun. You don't have to get worried. Everything's going to be happy at the end. Everything will be fine. She was really, really, really acting very difficult in these situations, because when you are with a person who is suffering from an illness or a disease or something, and you know that there is no cure for him, the only thing is that you can do is trying to lift his spirit. And you have no idea how much energetic that takes from the other person to uplift someone who knows that his life will end up by being dead sooner or later. So there is no purpose of, life right now except just counting days. Having this conversation and bring him the flowers, then she leaves the apartment and tells him that, if you didn't come to the party, I will be very sad, and these things. We see her in the elevator in that building in New York, and we see how tired she was. She has never spoken about the tiredness that she is living and the misery that she is living, which actually echoes the life of Clarissa Dalloway in the novel, because she comes through a lot of things in her life, and no one knows how much is she suffering or how much she has to say, but she is sharing this with no one. So the character of Clarissa in the movie also echoes the character of Clarissa in the novel. Not in same details of, having a daughter or having a husband or something like that, but, in terms of psychology, we see that both characters have several things that come together in a way that they are a burden to their own lives. Clarissa has suffered a lot from her relationship with Richard. She loves him, she can't leave him, and he loves her. He wants her to leave him, and he wants this misery to be ended, yet he can't, because simply his days are counted and he has HIV. So he can't do anything about it except just, waiting for his own death. Now, back to the, we're going to come back and forth because the movie was made just, back and forth. There is no, just one story stop the other story. So all the characters were just mingled together. Back to the representation of Virginia Woolf, played by Nicole Kidman. And we are going to talk about a scene that really symbolizes the real misery of Virginia Woolf. There are actually two scenes that were very powerful. The first scene is when her sister came to visit her, and she came with her kids. So for Virginia Woolf character, this is not something normal, because in the eyes of the others, in the eyes of society, she was abnormal. And her sister represents the normal people. A woman who is married, she has 3 kids, she's just concerned about reality, what she's going to do, everything. She's just, a normal person in the eyes of society. This meeting between her and her sister can be found as, this kind of Cold War between Virginia and the life and the society she has been always running from. So at certain point, Virginia was talking to herself, and I believe that talking to yourself is something very healthy, and it's something people consider it to be like, it's kind of madness or something. But it is important to you to speak to yourself in a loud voice and just, to think about certain things that are taking place into your lives. And this is something really normal. We are talking deep down to ourselves all the time. So what is the big deal if we decided to talk in a loud voice? Now, at that moment, the children of her sister, they were looking at Virginia and thinking like, if she's mad or something, like she's not concentrating, she's not replying, and she's just focused upon one thing, just gazing at the stair and doing just nothing except, she's just isolated herself from what's going on the other hand of life. Another scene is, which I believe that is very symbolic, is the death of the bird. So because they were living in the countryside, Virginia's house was very big, they had a garden, and the kids were playing into the garden and they found a dead bird. So she came towards the body of this dead bird and she stared at him. It's like if she was trying to manifest the death of that bird. For her, these things don't come in just, rational way or, in a way that there is no purpose of it. She went to the floor She just, bowed to the floor and put her head next to the dead bird. And we see that this gaze she gave to that dead bird, and it's really difficult, till now I really find it really difficult to interpret it in the right way, because it can be explained in several ways. But that gaze is really in my mind the whole time, looking at death and facing the silliness of life through that dead bird. He is now in eternal rest. The other scene, when she was trying to escape the country and she wants to go to London. Now, the doctors have suggested for Virginia that she should not go to the city because the hustle and bustle of the city, the noise of the city, is irritating for her mental health, and it's not good for her mental system. So due to that, they have decided that she would live in the countryside. She didn't decide that, the doctors decided that. But she was in a great misery. And I believe for everyone who have, in a way or another, left his home country to another country, or left the city to the village, or left the village to the city, or something like that, because I have been through that a lot in my life. It is really difficult. And a lot of people won't consider how difficult it is to live in a place where you can't fit in. Simply, you can't fit in there. It's not your life. It's not your style. It's not the way that you want to spend your day. She wanted to feel alive. She wanted to feel that her existence is coming along the side with other people's existence. She wanted to feel the pulse of the city. She wanted to be plunged into this kind of atmosphere. She didn't want to live in the country. So when everyone was, busy in something in the house, she went through the back door and she decided to go to the train station, grab a train, go by the train, take the train, and just go to London. Her husband has followed her, and they had this kind of fight in the center, in the train station, where she told him, "I am dying here." So in a way or another, I believe that Virginia Woolf was the victim of, first, society, second, medical system, third, her own surrounding people that were not capable of, capturing what she really wanted. But it was difficult maybe for them, because when you are having an order from a medical system that's telling you not to do this, do that, not to do this, do that, you are forced to do this because you believe that, it's the right thing for you to do it. Now, closing the movie, all in all, we will define later that Clarissa went back to Richard. They had this kind of very aggressive talk, and Richard was sitting at the window, near to the window, and he just threw himself from the window and died at the day of the party. Clarissa also has decided to kill herself, and we find later that Laura is the mother of Richard. So she came back, or she came at Clarissa's, and she told her, I didn't want him. I didn't want this marriage. I didn't want this life. So I grabbed myself, I went to Canada, and I have started there. Now, the thing about this movie is that it really makes you question your existence. It really makes you question the psyche of the people you are dealing with and you are seeing every day in your life. It makes you wonder how much is there inside of you and that no one knows about. And it leaves you in a certain way of awakeness that makes you feel always alarmed when certain things takes place in your life. That was, a short review or analysis, if you want to call it, about the Hours. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and wait for me.